There's a radio station in Hollow Creek that's been off the air since 1986. Last Tuesday, at 3:11 in the morning, my clock radio turned itself on and tuned to it. I should explain something about Hollow Creek first. It's the kind of town you only find by missing a turn. One diner, one church, one traffic light that's blinked yellow since before I was born. And on the ridge above the reservoir, a rusted radio tower nobody ever tore down. The station was called WKHC, 88.9 FM. My grandfather worked there as a night engineer until the winter it closed. He never told anyone why it closed. When people asked, he'd just say the same 7 words. We stopped broadcasting. Something else didn't. I moved back to Hollow Creek in March, into his old house, after he passed. Most of his things were already boxed. But in the basement, on a workbench under a sheet of dust thick as felt, I found his radio. A hand-built receiver, heavy as a car battery, with a strip of masking tape above the dial. On the tape, in his handwriting, "Do not tune past 88.7. I want to tell you I respected that. I want to tell you I unplugged it and went to bed. But it was 3 a.m., I couldn't sleep, and the tape was 40 years old. So I turned the dial. 88.8 was static, ordinary static, like rain on a tin roof. 88.9 was breathing. Not static that sounded like breathing. Breathing. Slow, patient, close. The way it sounds when someone's mouth is almost touching the microphone. I sat there with my hand still on the dial, telling myself it was interference, a heartbeat of some far-off signal skipping over the mountains. Then the breathing stopped, and a voice, flat, careful, like it was reading from a card, said, "Thank you for tuning in. We've held your grandfather's slot open." I unplugged the radio. I need you to understand that. I pulled the cord out of the wall, and the dial light stayed on for 4 more seconds. Long enough for the voice to finish. Same time tomorrow. I didn't sleep. In the morning I did what anyone would do. I drove to the library and pulled everything on WKHC. Most of it was nothing. Ad rates. A charity drive. But in the January 1986 microfilm, I found a wire story 4 paragraphs long. 3 employees of WKHC had gone missing during a single overnight shift. The night DJ, the receptionist, and a maintenance man. The transmitter had kept running for 9 hours with no one in the building. When the sheriff finally cut power at dawn, the tape reels were still turning. They were recording, not playing. The station never reopened. My grandfather was the one who found the empty studio. He was also, and the article said this like it meant nothing, the one who refused to ever play the recording. That night I sat in the kitchen with coffee I didn't drink, watching the basement door. I'd left the radio unplugged. I'd left it in pieces, actually. I took the back off and pulled the tubes out with my own hands. At 3:11 a.m., from under the floorboards, softly, in my grandfather's voice, the radio said, "You're late for your shift." Here's the thing about small towns. You can't ask for help without the whole town knowing by lunch. So I asked the only person who wouldn't talk, Pastor Ellison, who's 91 and buried most of the people in this town, including the 3 names from that article. Except, he told me, they never buried anyone. There was nothing to bury. But your grandfather figured out how to keep it quiet, he said. Every night, 3 a.m., he drove up to that station and sat in the booth till dawn. 40 years, near enough. Never missed a night. Never told a soul what he did up there. I asked him what happens if nobody sits the shift. The pastor looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "It starts auditioning." Last night, every radio in Hollow Creek turned on at 3:11 a.m. The diners, the churches, the one in my truck with the fuse removed. One frequency, one voice, patient as ever. Auditions are now open. Thank you all for listening. We know you are. We can hear every one of you breathing. I'm writing this from the parking lot below the tower. The building's dark except one window, the booth. My grandfather kept this town safe for 40 years, one night at a time, and I finally understand his 7 words. We stopped broadcasting. Something else didn't. The shift starts in 10 minutes. If you ever drive through Hollow Creek at night, do me one favor. Keep your radio off. This is tape number 1. If I'm still here next week, there'll be a tape number 2.